This is Earthmovers.
With Allison Mariella Desir, Stefanie Flippin, and Verna and NezBegay Volker.
A trail podcast reclaiming the narrative.
All right, everyone, welcome back to Earthmovers, a trail podcast reclaiming the narrative presented by Ultra. I am Stefanie Flippin, one of your co-hosts, and today I am joined by one of our other co-hosts, Miss Verna Volker. Verna, welcome. How are you?
Yes, thank you for having me.
I realize I just introduced you more like a guest. For our listeners, that's largely because Verna is fresh off of her 100-mile finish. She's a newly minted 100-miler. And this episode is going to be dedicated primarily to diving into Verna's race day experience, everything that led into it. I'm very, very excited to have this conversation. But yeah, Verna, how are you feeling?
I actually feel pretty good. It's been, less than a week. So of course, the day of, you're barely walking.
Yes.
And then the funny part is like traveling to the airport, that next day. It's just, you're trying to walk normal so that people don't realize that you're shuffling along. But so just adjusting to that. And I think by the third day, I felt pretty good. It's just I'm feeling tired and almost kind of in like a surreal feeling of like, wow, I just did something pretty amazing. And even today, I was just kind of thinking about that. I was like, wow, I can't do that. I mean, I can't believe I did that. So
sure.
So it was, So I feel pretty good.
Good. I'm thrilled to hear that. And I mean, I know at least for myself, especially like the 100-mile distance, anything longer, I feel like there's always a pretty significant come down too after the race. It's so much training heading into it, like physically, obviously, but like mentally and emotionally too. And for you, especially, like this was your second attempt at completing the distance. I'm sure that you are going through a ton of different emotions right now.
I think I was reminded by, my coach. I was telling everybody that I was training for 6 months.
Yeah.
But he reminded me that it was 8 months.
Yeah.
And so that was a long, it's a long time. Yeah.
And really, like, the way I always look at it for my own athletes and for myself too is like kind of like a lifetime of training, right? Like it's all of your lived experiences that you bring into this type of endeavor, right?
Right.
It's like a lifetime of mileage and just all of your experiences and we'll dive into this, but your childhood, everything has been leading up towards this. I usually find personally that like there's just so many there's so much emotion and like a come down after it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was kind of feeling that with the person that I'll talk about in this podcast is the person I also ran with too during that time, and we've been texting each other back and forth and laughing about certain things that we probably forgot in the middle of the night. But that has just been nice to have someone that understands. Like, hey, I'm feeling a little bit like, still excited, can't believe it, but at the same time, that coming down of like, oh wow, like I asked my coach, I said, now what do I do now?
There's like this kind of void in your life, right? Well, before we dive into like everything about race day, I do want to go back in time just a little bit and talk about just what brought you into running ultras, like being out on the trails, what inspired you to take on the 100-mile distance. And, before we like dive even further into that, I do want to just share a very sincere thank you to our primary presenting sponsor, Ultra Running, for allowing us to have these conversations and really being such just a really like dedicated partner for us to have these conversations and to really bring to light stories like yours, Verna, that are not the typical sort of athletic trajectory, right, that we tend to see being presented, right, as the primary narrative. We're extremely grateful for Ultra's support in this. You can find them at ultrarunning.com. They offer 30-day trials, free shipping, free returns. And again, we are extremely grateful for their support. Along those same lines too, to our listeners, we ran a very successful Kickstarter leading into our release of this first season of Earthmovers. We want to just give a very, very sincere thank you for our supporters there. So I'm briefly going to do a few shout outs to some of our Kickstarter supporters. So first up, thank you so much to Wasatch Trails Collective, also Jasmine Roman, Felicia Hokenstad, and LaCheryl Amir Bay. Thank you so much to all of you for your support. We could not do this without you, and we are extremely grateful to have your support in elevating these conversations. So, all right. So before I just continue rambling on here, let's get back to Verna's story. So Verna, what brought you onto the trails? What really what brought you into ultra running, and what made you want to set a goal to go after the 100-mile distance?
Yes. So I started running later in life. I always talk about how I had like a preschooler, a toddler, and a baby at the time. And I started running road races, kind of
Hmm.
like the beginnings of it. Um, and I like road, and I felt like it was something that I enjoyed. And in the moments where I started, I couldn't believe that I could actually run. Like I started running marathons,
Hmm.
but it wasn't until like 2018 or even kind of before that when I was doing some research on like Native women who were running. And I kind of really enjoyed trail running because of the smaller community. So in
Hmm.
like 2018 is when I started. I ran like my first like 50K,
Hmm.
and it was like so hard. It was like muddy, and I finished it, and um, I really liked it. I like the community, how small it was. I like that you have to force yourself to slow down.
Hmm.
People love road running, and I do. And I remember always being one of those people that wanted to be faster, but
Hmm.
I thought that was a moment where I was like, you know what, it's okay to be slow.
Hmm.
And then I just learned so much more about trail running in
Hmm.
2018. And I did like from there like 50Ks and like 50 milers. One of my best race was I think I always forget my date, but like I think 2021 was when I ran my first 100K at
Hmm.
Javelina 100.
Ah, yes, I remember that.
And Javelina is such a fun race, but when you come from like Minnesota desert, not
Oh
Minnesota,
gosh,
Minnesota to the desert,
right.
like there they always say, oh, it's cool, it's like the end of like October, like their cool weather is like still summer to
Oh my
Minnesota.
gosh, I
To
know.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
So I finished that race, and that just really was one of my best races. And then it's kind of one of those things where you're like, okay, I'm gonna push a little bit more. How far could
Mm,
I've done the 50s, I've done 100K, so let's go move on to 100. And so it was in 2023 when I decided to to attempt it. I did attempt it earlier in like 2022,
mhm.
but I only got to 50K at Javelina just because my asthma.
Oh, that's
I
right.
have extreme asthma, and so
Mhm.
like I have to give myself shots.
Mhm.
And so that always, like, weather's always a factor,
Mhm.
elevation is always a factor. And
Mhm.
so that race, I just remember thinking I cannot breathe. And so the
Yeah.
nurses were like, I don't think you should be continue running. You could, but it's pretty risky. And so that was kind of like an attempt, I guess. And then the second time was at Dark Anchor in 2023. And so that's how I told my coach I'm never doing that again. In 2023, I said, you know what, that's enough. I don't need to try again. But he kept reminding me, oh, you'll come around. And then that's when last year of January, this January, I decided, okay, it's finally time to think about doing this again. And so, yeah. So I yeah, so that's where I'm at.
Love
So-
that. Well, for our listeners, like being a coach myself, you have been working with your coach for quite some time now. Do you want to give a shout out to him and just tell us a little bit more about how you two connected?
yes, my coach is Daniel, and he's on Instagram. He's athletic without meat.
Mhm.
Athlete Without Meat is his
Mhm.
IG, and we met through Instagram in 2018. I think I just had like a question for him, and then
Mm.
somehow we connected, and he just took me under his wing since then.
Mm.
I've tried to pay him, I've tried everything just to say, hey, this is my gratitude. And so he
Yeah.
coaches me from afar.
Yep.
There's a program that he does, and so he'll send me all the training plans,
Hmm.
and then he'll just send me messages, and always
Wonderful.
makes himself because he's like 7 hours ahead, and
Okay.
so he's always made.
Is he located in Europe?
Yeah, he's in Germany,
Oh, okay, cool.
and so he always just I think 7 hours ahead, and always makes
Mhm.
himself available to me.
Mm,
And so yeah, I've been able to meet him last year in Berlin, and then
mm,
I was able to travel to his home, and
mm,
him and his wife and his two little girls hosted me. And so he was able to share more of his knowledge
mhm,
of trail running,
mhm.
especially running down hills
Yeah,
and
yeah.
how to use poles.
Oh,
So
wonderful. Yeah.
because
Mhm,
I've never used poles in any of my ultras, and this was the first time, and
mhm,
so I was made you just assume you're using it right, but then he
mhm.
showed me how to use it, and so that
Yeah.
was really nice. We call it our little like training camp
Yeah, I
that
love
we went
that.
to. And so yeah, so we've been so he was very proud of me. It just
Of course, yeah.
where just especially recently, and how hard I've been working just to get where I'm at today. So yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. And I share in his pride of you too, Verna. I'm just, I could not be more proud of you for getting this done. I know this has been a big goal of yours for a long time. It's so exciting. And I saw your update too on your Instagram, bio, with 100-mile finisher. I love that.
Yes.
I love that.
I know.
I love that. Love that quick edit there.
I know. I was like, we got to change this.
Well, okay, so a huge thank you to your coach Daniel. I've had conversations like this, like when I've been a guest on other podcasts too, and I just think it's ripple effects like this, right? Where it's a coach who is providing that type of care, that type of guidance for an athlete like yourself, and just really leaving space on their rosters to provide like that
Right.
type of
Mhm.
holistic support, especially like I said, for athletes that are not typically represented right on these
Right,
start
for sure.
lines.
Yeah,
So
for
a
sure.
big thank you to him for being so invested in this type of work that you and I are both really passionate
Yeah,
about.
and I always remind him that, for him, he's a German guy
Hmm.
that in our community, our native community,
Hmm.
because he's, coached me, and he's
Hmm.
communicated with like my crew, or,
Yeah.
that he's not just like he's helping not only me, but he's helping my community. And for
Yes.
him, that's a different
Yes.
like concept. Like, wow, like
Mm,
I didn't realize that, but like that's
yeah.
just how native cultures are. Like
Yeah.
you take one under your wing, you take all of
Mm,
us. And so it's
hmm.
just kind of a community thing. And so he thought that was
Yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that is incredible. I mean, along those same lines, like what aspects like of your Navajo or Dene culture have you drawn from, like just not just in terms of getting these long like ultras done, but what type of influence has your Navajo or Dene culture had on like just you being a runner in general?
Yeah, growing up, I always talk about like I wasn't a runner. Like many
Hmm.
native runners have grown up running,
Hmm.
especially Navajos.
Hmm.
But I remember hearing a story growing up about when you wake up to run, you go and you run to the east, and you
Mm.
greet Creator, and you say your prayers. You live in balance,
Hmm.
and so as a young child, you don't really think anything of it, But
Hmm.
as I got older, I realized how cool is that, because I'm a morning runner, to wake up
Hmm.
early and to like greet the sunrise, to greet
Hmm.
Creator. And so I think that's really has taken on so much of like my running, of like
Hmm.
how spiritual it is. And
Yeah.
um I think I share this often on my social media, how like I run in honor of my loved ones.
Yes.
And my parents have passed, and I've lost three siblings, and so like every race that I do, whether it's a small race or a big race, I always like write their names on my
Hmm.
shoes, and just kind of a reminder of like when it gets hard, as you
Yeah.
can, how in the middle of that, you just kind of remember them, and it's just, you honor them. And it's almost like this little like boost of energy
Hmm.
that you kind of get through. And especially in the moments where it just seems so impossible to be finishing this race. But yeah, those
Yeah.
are, I think, some of the things I've really taken on, and I've
Hmm.
really I feel like it's just really switched from when I started running to like taking on trail running is just so different, because it's
Hmm.
you're taking the time to be in nature. As
Yeah.
road running, you're
Yeah.
fast, or there's crowds, you don't
Hmm.
really have time to take in nature.
Yeah.
Where like trail ultra is just such a big difference. It's you
Hmm.
switch gears.
Yeah. You you just so perfectly transitioned into. I was just going to ask you a little bit more about who you run for, but I remembered something that I wanted to share with you because I actually don't think I've shared this with you before. But I typically like I'm a very like emotional runner myself. I similar to you. It's like every single race that it's always for someone,
Right.
and it's usually someone, right, like a family member of mine who's passed on, but I had a very, very close relationship with my grandfather, so my mom's dad.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually passed away. He passed away on my seventh birthday, actually.
Oh,
So
wow. Mm-hmm.
it's kind of crazy that, like, he is arguably him and my grandmother are the two most important people in my life, like
Right.
no doubt about that. But it's kind of crazy to me because I'm like, I actually really only had 7 years with him, but
Right.
my memories with him are so strong. The human brain is wild, right? And I think a lot of the memories I have are probably like bolstered by like photos, right, or like talking
Exactly.
about
Yeah.
these types of memories. I don't know that I like actually remember, but then when I reflect back, I'm like, no, I do remember that. But anyhow, I had shared, I believe with who it was, a woman who's a part of Native Women Running, but I had shared in my stories, like a personal story. My grandfather and my grandmother used to take me camping a lot, and I
Mm-hmm.
grew up in San Diego, so I'm 36 years old. This is many years ago. Things were very different then, but we
Yeah.
used to camp down in Mexico quite frequently. And my grandfather, I don't know why, but I really loved like horned toads. So like
Okay.
the little
Mm-hmm.
lizards,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Or like I think are they sometimes called bearded dragons
Yeah.
too? I
I
know
think
there's
so. Yeah.
right like interchangeably, but I loved them. I was just like obsessed with them, and my grandfather would like kind of like help me like catch them, and I just like pet them, and I was just really into them. And then one of your sisters with Native Women Running responded to my story, and she was like, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in our culture, specifically bearded lizards or like horned toads or horned frogs are associated with grandfathers.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And if they run up and touch you, like when you're out in the desert, it's like a
Mm-hmm.
sign. It's like a hug from like your
Yeah.
grandfather. And I just, that has just stuck with me because
Yeah.
as a child, I didn't know that. It was just something my Chinese Japanese grandfather and
Right.
I bonded over. But I love that connection
Oh,
to your
yeah.
culture. It just
Yeah,
was
because
really
like
special.
grandpa means Che, and so sometimes when people find it, they hold it in their hand and they'll be like, Che visited me, to me
Yeah,
today. Yeah. So
yeah,
yeah, I love
yeah.
that.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, and so like I bring that up too because what I've lined up at Javelina a handful of times and done a lot of training out there, and every time I've been out there, I actually have seen like a horned frog out
Right.
there or a horned
Yeah,
toad, and it feels really really special, and I don't ever think that those types of interactions are coincidences.
I
I
totally, yeah.
really don't.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
totally agree. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
I share that with you about just carrying those our relatives and loved ones with us for these big endeavors for
Yeah, for
their
sure.
emotional support. But
Yeah, I'm always
okay.
crying.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Such a
Yes,
crier.
always, right?
Yeah.
um Okay, so all right, so let's dive further into like actual race day. So the race that you lined up for was called Redwoods Milestone Challenge. I did a little bit of research on
Yeah.
it. This is a super unique format. It's not like your typical
Mhm.
format. I love, and please, I want you to share more just about like the race director, and I think they were doing some really impactful things. But so it was a 4-day all inclusive event.
Right. Mhm.
And so like all of you kind of had a choice, right, in terms of like how to break that up, but the
Right.
ultimate goal for everyone, or I don't know if it was for everyone, but the ultimate goal was to be able to get to 100 miles over the course of those 4 days. And it was an all-inclusive event too. I think they
Yeah.
provided, yeah, so that's incredible.
It was really nice. I mean,
Mhm.
we had our crew. I mean, the volunteers there were the crew. If we wanted to go back to sleep, we could go back and sleep.
Yeah,
Like there was all the meals that were
mhm,
provided, everything was provided, and
mhm,
uh, yeah. And then we had one of the best things was the recovery house, which
mhm.
we had a massage therapist on site, and
Nice.
then all the gadgets for our legs and stuff. So
Hmm.
that was really nice. I
Hmm.
think that really is, like you said, it's a unique format.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
It actually kind of reminded me a little bit of like on a much smaller scale, obviously, but it reminded me a little bit of like further, like what
yeah,
like the Lululemon project, just
yeah,
the include like just the all inclusive aspects,
right,
particularly like you said, the recovery house or tent,
right.
but yeah, so all of you had 4 days to cover the distance. However, as I was following along, I'm like, Berna is trying to is not like casually running a 50K and then getting 8 hours of sleep at night. She
No.
is no, and I could have guessed that from your personality and the way you were training. Because remember, to our listeners, Verna put in a 12-hour long training run leading into this, which is insane. I can honestly say that like I have personally not put in a training run of that duration without it being in a race format. Super impressive. But yeah, tell us a bit more just in terms of your like approach to getting this done.
Yeah, I moved. I'm so grateful. Like, moving was hard, but we moved to an area that has more of like inclines. And
Hmm.
so a lot of my training was on inclines. So I was on
Hmm.
clips. Um, I think that really helped because I think if I would have came to this race not having that, I think I would have
Hmm.
been shocked because there was so
Yeah.
much climbing and
Okay.
inclines. And
Yeah.
so,
Hmm.
also, I think with my coach, our goal, because I have a form of arthritis in my right knee, so I
Okay.
have to get like infusion therapy. And so,
Mm,
it's something that my coach and I have talked about, and we've done like strength training to keep my knee strong.
hmm.
And I think it's helped because my
Yeah.
I don't feel any swelling, and so I was just grateful that I felt pretty good the whole time.
Hmm.
But when I got there, it was there's I think what I liked about the race was I didn't feel intimidated
Mm,
because there was not
huge.
a lot of runners. It was like and there's also everyone's attitude was like less competitive. It was more so
Mm-hmm.
the race director saying, "This is a challenge for you,
Hmm.
not anybody else.
Hmm.
This is how far can you go?"
Yeah.
And I just felt better because I was
Yeah.
like, "This is so different than what I've always having to like participated in."
Hmm.
And so I think that's what I really liked about the race, and just the time. The time that we had 60 hours,
Yeah. Sure.
you know,
Hmm.
and that just kind of makes you feel good. But I, as you can, like you said, I was like, we're not messing around. We're like,
Oh yeah.
we're gonna go.
Yeah.
Um, and so I just kept moving forward, and
Mhm.
I didn't eat any of the meals. My goal was to like eat a good meal by like the 12th hour, but
Mhm.
like I kept in tune with my just my hydration
Yeah.
on the hour,
Mhm.
food whenever.
Mhm.
But it was until like the 12th hour where I was able to eat like real good food. And then they had like a 10-mile loop that you
Yeah.
could run. And then they also had a 2-mile loop.
Okay.
And so,
Over that 10-mile loop, like, do you remember how much, like how much
yeah, it was like
gain was on?
2000, over 2000.
Okay.
And
Oh wow.
it
Okay.
was constant. And so we did the first time. It was beautiful. It's a redwood. Second time around, I just like like the end. I was like, okay, it was getting hot, and
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna just try the 2-mile loop,
Yeah.
because
Kind
it
of
was,
easier to chunk up
yeah,
too,
it was
hopefully.
more shaded too,
Yeah. Okay.
and so and since then I never stopped. I just did that loop
Amazing.
40 times. I
Oh
did
my
that.
gosh.
I did that 40 freaking times. And so,
Oh my gosh.
by the third loop, my friend Sky, he's a Navajo
Yes.
who
Yes.
just won a scholarship to that like
Mhm.
2 weeks prior.
Mhm.
We only known each other through social media, and we
Yeah.
have mutual friends. And
Yeah.
so we were like, "Hey, you can go ahead, you can do
Mhm.
whatever you want."
Yeah.
But somehow we decided to stick together by the fourth loop,
Yeah.
and we stuck together the whole time,
Mm.
and we kept doing those. He did it 30 times, I did it
Mhm.
40 times. And
Yeah.
uh it was, yeah, we went through the night. It was Friday all day,
Mhm.
Friday through the night,
Mhm.
Saturday all day, Saturday through the night into Sunday morning. And it
Amazing.
was like it it was just crazy. And having someone who I didn't know that much who
Mhm.
just became my friend. And I think
Yeah.
the common thing we had was like we were both Navajo,
Mhm.
and we
Mhm.
both were we before we started the race, he we did like a little prayer like ceremony
Yeah.
on the trail. We had like corn pollen that we take. It's like a blessing, and so
Mm.
he brought the corn pollen, and so we did that before, quietly before the race, just to
Mhm.
kind of give like a blessing
Mhm.
and protection of our
Mhm.
run.
Mm.
And I truly believe like that was also just a really important part of why we finished.
Yeah.
And and so yeah, and the format was just like great because we'd every 2 mile loop we'd be at the aid station. and so
Yeah. Yes.
and so we'd be there, and the people they got our humor, and
Mm.
they would just give us whatever we needed, and we
Mhm.
just kept going. I mean, and as you know, it's there was times when we were like literally trying to sleep, while we're
Yeah.
like I caught ourselves just like walking and like falling asleep while walking.
Sure. Yes. This is very relatable.
It was just,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I we were able to take naps that energized us, but
Mhm.
I mean, it was mental, as
Sure.
you know. But yeah, it
Mhm.
was a lot of mental, um, of just like thinking about, okay, we got to get through this one again, and we have to get through this. It was, yeah,
Yeah.
those were kind of like those hard moments. So
Mhm. Something that I loved, like that just really stood out to me in your post, your race recaps that you shared on social media is, and the gentleman that you were running with, his name is Sky Tulley,
yeah,
correct?
yes, uh-huh.
Yeah. So, and he's also Navajo, as you shared, but you had said that he turned to you at one point during the race and said, "We're just two res kids out here
Mhm.
running 100 miler," and that to me, like, oh my gosh, I'm like getting emotional
Right,
right now
yeah,
just like just bringing it up. But can you share a little bit more with us just what that type of kinship means, that type of bond that you and Sky developed, like going through this journey together? And again, like you had said, you guys had just met the day prior.
yeah.
But yeah, can you share more about just the significance of, yes, you two individuals growing up on a reservation here in the United States and just your journey to then taking on this 100-mile race together?
Yeah, we both were. I remember it was like through the night, and he said we're just two res kids, and I was like, and I said to him, you know what, you're right. We both have stories of oh gosh, I'm gonna get emotional, like
I know. Yeah.
trauma and
Yes.
really
Yeah.
hard stuff that we both like grew up with, and you know, we're just kind of like we're like probably unlikely runners that people would not assume to do 100 miler, but
Right.
this his story and my story, and just being able to be relatable of like we grew up without nothing. We grew up
Yeah.
in um where life was rough around us, but we had to be the ones to like break cycles in our families.
Hmm.
Um and so it was just interesting when he said that, because that just really kind of like motivated us more so. And um and the people around us just assumed that me and Sky knew each other, like
Sure.
we were friends, that we were like, actually we only met yesterday,
Yeah.
and to have
Yeah.
like such common and just things that we laughed about along the way. It was like
Mhm.
he was this little brother that I've never had,
Mm.
and we just kept saying we can do this, and uh, we can keep moving, and we would
Mm.
just talk to each other. And I think we held each other in ways that were like just through laughter,
Mm.
delusion. Delusion. There are moments where we're like delusion. We're like, oh,
Yeah.
there was like moments where we like
Mm.
thought we saw stuff,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so it was just really. Even now, it's just been fun just to text him and just
Mhm.
talk about what happened. And
Yeah.
it was pretty emotional at the end of that, at the end of the race. And
Mhm.
I think because we knew like, hey,
Mm.
we did this, we did that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And
So
Verna, you have shared so candidly over the years too, just the loss, right? Like losing your parents, losing your siblings. So I'm sure having Sky out there, again, I'm not trying to put words into your mouth by
Right,
any
right, for
means,
sure.
but yeah, I'm sure that that just held even more of a significance for you, going through this journey, like having someone, like you just said, like kind of like a younger brother out there, and you guys belong to the same clan.
Right.
It's really, that's really powerful.
Yeah, and he had just lost his aunt, and
Okay.
so we
Yeah.
both were. There was a moment when I said, Creator, help us during this time, as we,
Mm,
run in honor of our loved ones, and
mhm.
um, those kind of like. I guess sometimes people, when they think about running, they don't think about stuff like that. I just don't know, but like,
Yeah.
it was just like such a common thing of like loss, and his family, the weekend that he ran, there was the funeral, and his family said,
Mm,
"We want you to go run. We
mm,
want you to do this in honor of your aunt."
mm,
And he has two boys, and um, it was just, we were both, tired, and with the lack of like cell connection,
mhm,
it
mhm,
was like, just we had to just find comfort in just what was around us, because we both missed our families. I couldn't text my
mm.
husband, or
Yeah,
I
yeah.
couldn't text my kids, and that was
Mhm,
like hard. And but there was a reason. There was a reason that
mhm,
Sky was there, because prior to this race, like, he didn't know he was going to be there, and all of a
mhm.
sudden, 2 weeks later, he's there. So,
Yeah,
and
mm,
it's just the timing of it was just crazy. Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Well, I just think another one of these examples, right, of like there really are no coincidences, right? Like
right.
your and Sky's bond out there was truly meant to be, and you were both meant to run this race together. And really, like I say, run this race, but you both were meant to go on this like transformative journey together, right? And
Right.
that truly is what this is all about, and this sport is all about at its core. I'm thrilled that you had this experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The race director was so great, because
Mm,
he just kind of also was, matching us together, but at the same time also saying that individually, you both did something amazing, just kind of making sure that,
yeah.
even though we had each other, we still were able to like come together and do something together,
Mhm.
but individually finish, something. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, part of the gear, as we talk about, like our sponsorship, Ultra,
Mhm.
I took 3 pairs of Ultras, and those are that's what I wrote, on each of those shoes. I put the name of family members, and like my mom and dad, and it was just I guess, uh, a shoe, and how it, gear, and how important it is, especially with the 100 miler,
Yeah.
is you can't just wear one shoe.
Mhm.
Like, it was like, I was grateful, I guess a big shout out to Ultra for just, supporting something like this
Yes.
podcast, but supporting, the shoe, and
Mhm.
giving us, just having the shoe that is able to like get me through those like miles, was just such I guess such a great thing, because it was hard,
Mhm.
and with the, um, just having to like switch over and then switch again, and it saved me, and I think that was just
Yeah.
really like key to,
Good.
also to have good trail shoes on
Mhm.
such a long distance.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you shared with me, personally, Verna. I think you also shared, on our initial, podcast episode, that you have like wider feet. So
Right.
Ultra seems like such a wonderful fit for you. So that's wonderful that like they just worked so well for you, in this race context. And again, a big, big thank you to Ultra for supporting this podcast. Again, you can find them on ultrarunning.com. And we're, like I said, we're so appreciative of their support.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So Verna, could you tell us a little bit more? I saw some like post race footage that was just, it looked so special. The race director like did almost like a very like personal, description of every runner at the award ceremony, and like just did kind of like a speech for each of you. I understand this is like was definitely more of like a niche format. It's kind of like a kind of a pricier event too. I'm sure that that was helpful just in terms of having the funding. But yeah, do you want to share a little bit more about, milestone events, right?
Yeah. So So Dane is the race director, and so he, I mean, like from the beginning, the pre-race, like he gave us a really good speech about, just if you see that video that they put out about us as individuals, and even so, like, the format was just, when I had a meeting with him in about, I think in January, about me coming to this race, and he wanted to hear my story. And so that's when I told him about my attempt and how he invited me and he said, let's try this. Let's do this. And so I think when, gosh, I'm going to get emotional again. When I was running at the end there, I had at the finish line, I had my Navajo flag. And I knew we were like coming up, and I saw him and another gal who are the main people, and they held us like this scarf that said Milestone Events, and I crossed that finish line, and I was just like crying so much because I'm such a crier, but I couldn't even believe it. Like, and you see myself go like this, like, I can't believe I did this. And I turned to him and I said, thank you. Like, thank you
Mhm.
for like, believing in me,
Mhm.
for allowing me to come to this race. Like,
Yeah.
and he was just so kind of just like,
Mhm.
um, being able to open up that space to like to Sky and I to
Mhm.
accomplish something. And everyone around us was like crying.
Oh,
There
yeah.
were so many tears,
Yes.
and so I think that was just, I think for some of us who, there's trail racing who like
Mhm.
people are very hardcore, and we all are
Sure.
hardcore, and
Yeah.
every ultra runner is amazing. But
Mhm.
there's some of us who maybe don't move as fast,
Sure.
and I think there's a space for us to have someone have this space to say, we will give you more time. We will
Yeah.
allow you, we want you to finish. And I think that
Mhm.
means so much to me that I
Mhm.
can't even express my gratitude to Milestone Events.
Mhm.
Like I tell them over and over again, I don't even know what to say to you all for like
Mhm.
creating this.
Mhm.
And I just wonder, like, would, if I had a shorter time, maybe I would have failed again. Maybe I wouldn't have made it. And so,
Mhm.
um, so that was my only goal, was to like finish. And I think this was the
Yeah.
perfect race to be at. So yeah,
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And these are the types of things that like to your point, right? Like the sport is hardcore, like that goes without
right,
saying. But verbiage really matters, right? And there's a time and a place, right? Like that I could sit here and list like very specific races. I'm sure most of our listeners will like sort of pick up on or like what I'm insinuating here, but there's nothing wrong with creating a race, right? That's like meant to be really hard. It's meant to challenge you. It's meant, you're meant to explore your limits. But I think especially for female runners and especially for female BIPOC runners, that can be a real barrier, particularly like the verbiage and like the photos that are shown. It's one of those things where it's like, is the race's intent to make this as hard as possible to where like we're getting the least amount of finishers, right? And that's sort of like a catabolic like approach, right? You're kind of like almost wanting to tear down like your participants, or like is it better to make sure that like okay, like we are making our time cutoffs as inclusive as possible. Of course, right? There's a like a very like reality, right, that comes into play here with like permitting, right, and like road closures, trail closures, that type of thing. So of course, like I'm understanding that it can't always be like an indefinite, allotment of time. But I just think everything that you just described and the level of emotion that you just shared, it just really underscores the importance. If our sport wants to get more people like into the sport, especially more women and
right.
more
Mm.
members of marginalized groups, they really have to be mindful of making it as accessible as possible. And again, I always go back to like what the website looks like, right?
Right,
And
for sure.
and
Yeah,
how like intense they're trying to make it. And like I said, I think there's a time and a place for those races that are trying to make it as difficult as possible. But I just will always fall into the other camp where, like, it goes without saying that these endeavors are hard. But
Yeah.
let's try to create a positive experience, though.
Yeah, and I
You
think,
know.
we kind of mentioned, like, Yeti trail runners like Jason
Hmm.
Green, and like, and just how the people around these types of races just make you feel like you're just a
Hmm.
rock star,
Yeah.
um and cheering you on, strangers that you didn't know. Like, I just felt like with this race we became family. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't know each other, and we came into this running through the night, having some hard moments,
Hmm.
cheering each other on, and then to, like, you're like leaving summer camp because, like, you
Yeah.
you knew these people for just this time, and
Hmm.
now we're following each other on social media.
Hmm.
And I just was telling the race director, said, this race is so great. I said, I hope that we could give you more of a shout out, because
Hmm.
this was the first time at the Redwoods. They did it last year at Zion.
Oh, okay.
So this is like their second. This was like their first race in the Redwoods, and
Mm,
they said, we're still learning.
yeah, sure.
Um, but they have one next month. They have Zion, but um, I told them, I said, yeah, I would love to work with you, and so that we could
Hmm.
make it possible, um, to see how we can get more of our native people
Hmm.
to these events. And he's very also just open minded about doing the land acknowledgement, talking about even
Yeah.
before the race, the pre-race, talking about whose lands was this, and that was
Hmm.
impressive to me and Sky
Sure.
as we
Yeah.
sat there. And I will never forget, like, God. I'm just crying through this episode.
Okay. I'm sitting here. I'm sitting here like quietly weeping, like along with you. So.
But like, I will never forget the feeling of, like, like, you just to be like, you just never like realize like how hard it is, but like how possible, like, something,
Mm,
like this is. Um and I think just the people who just were surrounded us, who, social media updates that we tried to give, and
yeah.
so many people were like behind us and cheering for us.
Yeah.
And I think it's just something I'll never like forget, and I just want to put
Mm,
that in a little like
mhm.
bottle and keep it up. And
Yeah.
um I make jokes now because my buckle is in my purse, and I want I want everyone to see it and say, hey,
Yeah. Of
hey,
course.
do you want to see my buckle? And so,
Yeah.
and just, I think the home, with my husband and my kids, it was just
Mhm.
interesting because, I have teenagers, and so
Mhm.
the next day, I'm running. They're like, "Mom, are you still running?" Anytime I could get cell coverage, they're
Yeah.
like, "Mom, are you still out there?" Because I was giving like no updates, and they were just like,
Sure.
"Mom, are you okay?"
Yeah.
So just to be able to bring that home to them and say that, this is
Yeah.
this is possible. So yeah.
Yeah, I love everything that you've shared, and I think this is another, just it underscores again, kind of what I had shared that I personally felt and noted, from the We Out Here Trail Fest. Just a reflection that, like, oh, this experience is like what a lot of my like competitors and like colleagues experience every time, right?
Right. Hmm.
And for our listeners, like what you just described, like that's, like that's something that like you have not experienced and up until this point, right? And that
Right.
ability to like bottle up this experience, bring it home, be so proud of your buckle, like wanting to show everyone, what you accomplished, like it's the power, it's again just the power of representation, right?
Yes.
And the
Yeah, for
power
sure.
of, right, and being a
Hmm.
part of a race that intentionally created this space for you and Sky to just fully be yourselves out there, and to accomplish your goals, but in a way that was like safe and unique to who you both are. It's really, really special, and I feel really honored, to have shared this conversation with you, Verna.
Yeah.
um, just some final thoughts, to try to like end a little bit on like a happy note too. You had shared, and this, for our listeners, like hallucinations within distances, or I guess we could say like time too, like time on being
Uh-huh.
out there. But you had shared, some funny hallucinations that you and Sky, went through out during the race. Do you want to share with our listeners a little bit about what you may or may not have seen out there?
Yeah, there was one point when I was by myself, and I swore I saw the stick that was moving like a snake. And I literally had to like go back and like look down, and I knew I was tired. I
Hmm.
knew I was tired. And then
Yeah.
Sky said that he saw a goat with floppy ears staring at us.
Oh. Oh,
And
how
then
cute.
we're like walking, and he was like, on the trails they always have like these like little lights,
Mhm.
and he's like, "Is that kid with the curly hair, holding a candle?"
That's like
I
that's some horror movie.
I know, we were just, I mean, it was just so funny. There was, as you can imagine, you're so tired.
Mhm.
I think between both nights we slept less than an hour and a half,
Yeah,
and
right.
we were just like at one point just laughing, like laughing about anything that
Yeah.
seemed funny, and it was just like, and so I think that like laughter like carried us too. It carried us
Mhm,
through those hard moments,
mhm.
and then just being able to have that mindset also, or just that common ground of like having like knowing Navajo, and so we
Yeah,
would
yeah.
joke and say things in Navajo that were funny.
Mm. I love
And
that.
so I think that was, yeah, it was those were some of the hallucinations
Mm,
that we saw, and we would come back to the aid station, and
mm.
the staff, the volunteers, they just were laughing about us the whole time, and they thought we
Aw,
were such like characters because we tell them certain things that happen. And so yeah, those were, it's hard to believe that happens, but it really does happen. Hallucinations.
yeah.
Right.
I know. I'm thinking back to when I ran San Diego 100 a handful of
Uh-huh.
years ago. I like it must have been like the last like 50K of the race. What at that point I was like using poles for like the bigger climbs.
Hmm.
And that course is like notoriously like technical, like super
Hmm.
super rocky. But every time I would put my poles like down into the ground, I would
Uh-huh.
freak out because I was like hallucinating that there were just tons of mice
Oh
everywhere
my
on the trail.
gosh, really?
And like for our listeners, like I'm a huge animal lover. I'm vegan. You probably heard my 3 dogs barking throughout this episode. I sincerely apologize about that. But I wasn't grossed out by that. I was like petrified that I was just like impaling mice with my
Right.
poles, like with every step. And I remember just being like, oh my gosh, I'm killing so many of them. Like
It's just,
I need to finish this race. So I'm like no longer doing
it's,
that.
you're not hurting them. Yeah,
I
it's
know.
crazy.
It's really wild, like
It is wild.
what the brain creates. But
Yeah.
anyhow, well,
Yeah.
Verna, was there anything else about your 100-mile experience that you wanted to share with us?
I know that I felt so good the whole way. My last
Mhm.
100 miler really, I lost a lot of potassium, and I don't think
Okay.
I've shared that, where I was actually like, what's the word? Yeah, slanted over.
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
and so people had to give me poles because I
Mhm.
was like, I could not be upright
Yeah,
at my
right.
last. And so this time around, I just felt really strong. I felt really, uh, just capable of like getting out there. I just felt strong, and
Mhm.
just a reminder to people that it's just, I think anything is possible. Like I always tell people, if I can do this, you can do it too.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I know that like this, you're like, I'm a 100-mile finisher now, but for our listeners, I mean, you went 94 miles, correct? 94?
Yes,
That
last time, and that
yeah,
was
the dark anchor. Like that's that was arguably your most important quote training run, like leading into this one, right?
yeah. And I was kind of thinking back because that was such a flat course, and
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's
but
a great point.
that whole thing wrecked me. But this time
Yeah.
it was a harder course,
Mhm.
and I just felt strong. I mean, my
Mm,
legs, it felt good. At the end there, the bottoms of my feet started hurting, but even like the recovery, how sometimes you can get sores in your mouth
yeah,
because of
yeah.
so much like
So much sugar.
electrolytes.
Yeah,
And so, I
electrolytes.
mean, like I didn't even have that. And so just the recovery process, even coming home, I just felt really good.
Mhm.
Uh, so yeah, I think that just says a lot, just with my coach and how much he's
Yeah,
really
your
put a lot
training.
of effort, and just the mindset that I've had. And when we got done, so like they have this big chart. And so every 10 miles, you would put a stamp on that
Yeah.
chart.
Mhm.
Man, when I put that, if you see the video, I
Yeah.
put that last one on, and I literally scream and jump for joy
Yeah.
because I was so happy. And some of the runners who had finished are like, how could you jump after running 100 miles? But it was just,
You're
it
like,
was
you
like,
have no idea
it
what I've
was
gone
like,
through to get here.
so it was interesting because it was like, I felt like this inner child just like come out of like
Mm,
me, like a little girl who like grew up in the res, who never thought she would like, ever take on something this huge and to like
yeah.
finish it. So I was really like proud of that little native girl. And so,
Oh, yeah.
so it was really for her to
Oh, Verna.
finish that. So, but yeah,
Oh,
I'm proud of myself, and I'm just gonna soak it all in and not even think about doing it again. So
well, yes.
yeah.
I mean, we're going to celebrate this forever and ever and ever.
Yeah,
And I hope you never stop celebrating this accomplishment either, especially for little Verna,
yeah.
right?
Thank you. Yeah,
Like you represent so much, and I'm deeply hopeful that this conversation reaches other like young girls, right,
right.
who may be growing up on a reservation too, young girls and boys,
Well,
and
for sure.
because this is like what you and Sky accomplished together is so so special, and like I said, I'm so honored to have had this conversation with you, as a co-host, with
Oh, thank you.
Earthmovers, and yeah, just really excited to get this conversation out to the world.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Verna.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you again to our listeners. Please review, rate, subscribe. You can find Earthmovers podcast on all major podcast platforms. And again, we're so appreciative that you're here, and we'll see you next time.